Hello, Kairos Nation. It's your girl, Dr. K, and I am here with yet another teacher talk. Today, I am super excited to have Miss Hannah here, who is our fantastic history teacher for our sixth graders. She's going to tell you a little bit more about herself, but let me tell you, you're in for a treat because I have seen nothing but magic. All right, Hannah, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell everyone a little bit more about who you are and what brought you to Kairos.
Hi, I'm Miss Hannah. I am the sixth grade history teacher. I'm also the sixth grade level head. What brought me to Kairos initially was I was looking for a place to work to have close relationships with students. I saw a job opening at this place. I was like, hey, this is awesome. Like kids are on a first name basis with their teachers. There's self-paced learning. There's lots of opportunities to work one-on-one with students. And so I really jumped at this opportunity.
Great. How long have you been here at Kairos?
This is my second year at Kairos, so I started at the beginning of last year as the sixth grade history teacher, and so I am returning in that role, and I am now the grade level head.
Wonderful. Now, recently I came in and I was doing an observation, and one thing that I love about your class, it's always very interactive. You had a unit on China and Rome. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you planned that unit, and what was it that I was seeing the scholars do when they were up rotating to these different stations?
Yeah, so the China and Rome project is one of my favorites from last year. So students are learning about the Silk Road and the interconnectedness between Africa, Europe, and Asia. And so we study in particular China and Rome as the two biggest influencers in that. What we were doing the other day in our activity was we were using these different maps that I had laminated so that students could move around tables and they could answer questions about these maps. And then we could use dry erase markers to mark them up as well. So when students were looking at, say, this map, they could pinpoint on here, like areas where they saw that the empire lost money in this little key right here. Or when students were looking at this map, they had a prompting question about why they thought there were both land routes and sea routes. And so I had them try to connect different places. Like, what if we want to go from this place to this place? What's the fastest way? Why is this better than going all the way around? Something like that. And I had students at different tables. They had 6 minutes at each table to complete all these different questions. And then we would rotate. I always like to use a funny voice when I make them rotate. So I'm like, switch. And then they all get up and they move and they go to the next map.
And then another great practice that I saw you doing, you did a lot of academic monitoring. I saw you go into the students, giving them insight, making sure they were on like pace. How do you find that Summit and the way that you plan works hand in hand to help you really have that really integrated classroom that I saw you?
So I mostly use Summit as a really good jumping off point. What I'll do is I'll go into the Summit resources, I'll take a look at them. I take all the stuff that I like, and then I will print it out. I will like add in supplemental stuff as necessary, and then have the kids interact with things mostly on paper. So as you saw yesterday when you came into the classroom, none of the kids were on Chromebooks. I like to have at least 2 or 3 days where we have no Chromebooks at all so that kids can really have that interactive learning. This
Wonderful.
is one of the ways to keep them like super engaged and on task. And also just that tactile motion of handwriting is going to help them learn really, really well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'll take all the Summit resources, I'll print them out. I got these maps from Summit, so all I had to do was print them out and laminate them. And then I generated some of the questions I got from a Summit activity. And then they just went around and they did that interaction. And that left me really free to walk around and help students who needed help because a lot of the lesson was just self-guided.
And thank you for bringing that up. I think that a lot of people feel like because we use Chromebooks and we have an interactive platform that all the learning happens in the Chromebook. So you're absolutely right. The fact that you're able to take it out of the Chromebook and they had another way to kind of interact and have this other skill set, I thought was wonderful. Well, what I also want to bring to our audience is the unit that I know that you were working on last a couple months ago about the organization of society. Can you tell me more about that unit, how you planned and what the kids did and how they learned that?
Yeah, so the organization of society was one that the kids really enjoyed, which I was very happy with because it's very information heavy. And it is about 5 different ancient societies and identifying patterns between those societies because they all developed differently. But I wanted the kids to try and make some connections between like the ways that people will work together, the ways that people will treat other people, the ways that people will interact to form an organized society. And so our final product, our project at the end of the cycle, last cycle, was that the kids had to identify some sort of commonality between the 5 societies and then write about that commonality throughout the societies. I got some really, really interesting student works on the relationships between like men and women, on the relationships between like people in power and not in power, on the developments of agriculture. And so students were able to look at those different societies, use their evidence to create arguments about how these societies were similar and different.
Wonderful. That sounds like you put it all together and the learning is happening in the classroom. The kids are walking away with that new insight. The last part that I really want to talk to you about is our platform Summit. What excites you most about Summit? And what do you want parents to know if they're interested in or coming to our school or using the platform, especially from your perspective as a history teacher? What are some things you can share with us?
So what I really like about Summit is the self-guided aspect. I love the focus areas. So the focus areas are these mini units that students take themselves through or go through with a partner or a small group, where they can explore resources that they are interested in. There's a huge resource bank. And what I always recommend to students is start with the ones that look interesting to you. Because oftentimes we look at student learning and we want to see high levels of engagement that sometimes aren't always there. And so
Absolutely.
by having those students look at those and get to choose like what format they want to see things in, if they want to read about it, if they want to watch a video about it, if they want to do like an interactive quiz on it, that's a great way for students to engage and also to have those levels of differentiation for students who have different needs and different interests. That way, they can learn whatever they are trying to learn. So whether it be about ancient Mesopotamia or the ecological like life systems, then they can do it in a way that makes sense to them.
Wonderful. I think that's really great about the learning styles. Like you said, they can be multimodal, auditory, visual, all of those things are there. And then you being a wonderful instructor, you're able to kind of see how to meet the kid where they are. And that's truly how we provide an equitable environment. Well, Ms. Hannah, as promised, you delivered on sharing all of that magical things that are happening in your classroom. I'm super excited that our scholars get to learn from you. Is there anything that you want to tell our incoming 5th graders, because you're a 6th grade teacher, how can they prepare and get ready for your class if they're interested in joining our wonderful team here at Kairos?
I'd say definitely do as much reading as you can. We do a lot of reading in history. And definitely learn how to cite evidence, because that's another big one for us. So read as much as you can, gather all that information, and we're gonna have a good time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for allowing us to find out more about how you love learning and love teaching and just bringing that environment to fruition for all of the scholars. This has been a Teacher Talk with Dr. K. We had our special guest, Ms. Hannah. If you want to hear more about these Teacher Talks, join us next week for our next edition. But until next time, bye.